Okay, good morning. I hope all of you are there. So we are going to wrap up the session on single phase transformer today with, the topics that I have already listed on the paper. We had seen so far the basic constructional details of the transformer, classification of the transformer. We had seen the basic equivalent circuit configuration of the transformer, but we have still not seen how to determine the parameters of a single phase transformer if you are given one. So let us start off with determination of equivalent circuit parameters experimentally. So we are going to look at basically two tests which are mainly conducted for a transformer so that the equivalent circuit parameters can be determined. That is OC test and SC test. So open circuit test and short circuit test. These are the two things that we are going to take a look at. First of all, let us see what is the necessity for these tests. Why can't we directly load the transformer and try to look at how the transformer is performing? Why is it necessary to conduct these two tests, which are probably non-loading tests? So OC and SC tests both are non-loading tests. So what we mean by non-loading test is that we are not going to draw the power drawn or power supplied is very small. So if we are talking about a big power transformer whose rating is, let us say, 400 MVA and let's say 13 kilovolts by 400 kilovolts. This is typically the rating of a transformer, maybe a power transformer. If I have to really test this, that means I have to have a load of 400 MVA capacity. Normally, it is going to be very, very difficult, first of all, to find the load of 400 MVA capacity. Secondly, I will be wasting a huge amount of power. So the problem with the load test is that wastage of power and also availability of loads. I'm not going to be able to get really a load of 400 MVA capacity. It is going to be very, very difficult. So rather than that, phantom loading test or non-loading tests are better. So in non-loading tests, we are going to essentially look at two of them. One is open circuit test, where the secondary is going to be left open and the primary is applied with rated voltage, or I would say primary or secondary, rather than saying that, the low voltage side is going to be applied with rated voltage, but the secondary is open, which means the current drawn is really less. Current drawn is only no load current, and we already said that the no load current is normally less than 5% of rated current. So you can imagine, if the voltage applied is rated voltage, but the current is only less than 5% of rated current, the power consumed in all probability will be less than 5% of rated power. That's why we say it is a non-loading test. We are not going to really load the transformer much at all in this case. So let us try to see how this is done. Open circuit test is done. So what we are going to have is, let us say this is our voltage source. Let me call that as V1, which is the primary voltage. Now this is going to be applied to the primary of the transformer, or LV winding, low voltage winding of the transformer. Here is my high voltage winding, and between them is the core, and this is going to be open circuited. I'm not going to really connect any load on this. Now this is applied to the primary of the transformer through a wattmeter. So I'm showing a wattmeter here with current coil and voltage coil. and I'm going to have an ammeter, and I can put a voltmeter here to measure the voltage. So this is what is the arrangement for OC test. So this is the OC test circuit diagram. So in this case, what I am going to see is the wattmeter, what it reads, let me call that as W0 because it is open circuit test. Let me call this as I0. Let me call this as V0. So I am going to note down what are V0, I0 and W0. The voltage applied is rated voltage, whereas the current is only 5%. So if the current is only less than 5%, in that case, what I am going to see is, if I look at the normal equivalent circuit of the transformer, I have R1, X1, and I am going to have XM, RC and XM, and the primary winding, which is ideal in nature. This is what is my equivalent circuit of the transformer. Now, R1 and X1, whatever is the voltage drop I am going to look at, it is going to be 5% of the nominal voltage drop, because normal current that is drawn is 100%. So 100% will be the load current or rated current. Whereas what is there as the current that is flowing under open circuit test is less than 5%. So I can say I0 square R1 or I0 square X1. These are going to be less than or equal to 0.05 whole square multiplied by rated dissipation. Right? So compared to rated dissipation, these are very, very small, because of which we can assume that W0 corresponds to only core losses, nothing else, because I have applied rated voltage at rated frequency. So the flux is rated value. So I'm going to have flux to be rated value. So I would say core losses are also rated value. So my core losses are at rated value. So because of which I'm going to assume that W0 in this case corresponds to rated iron loss directly. Okay. So the assumption is very much valid because of the fact that the current that I am passing is only 5% of rated current. So if I look at I0 square R1, which is the real power loss, that is going to be 0.05 whole square multiplied by whatever is the rated dissipation, that is 0.000025, which is very, very small. So now that I have got W0, V0 and I0, I can say V0, I0 cos phi naught is equal to W0, where I can say cos phi naught is no load power factor. Fine. Now, let me say that no load power factor is known. If you may recall the phasor diagram, this was our voltage and I was having the magnetizing current like this and core loss component of current like this. When I added the two, I got I0. This is what we drew as the phasor diagram. And clearly my power factor angle, this is phi naught, what we are talking about right now as the no load power factor angle. So I can say I0 cos phi naught will give me IC, that is the core loss component of current. And I can calculate what is I0 sin phi naught, which will give me Im, which is the magnetizing current. So I have got magnetizing current, I have got core loss component of current. So I should be able to write now whatever is the applied voltage V0 divided by IC will give me RC, which is actually the fictitious resistance representing core loss. This is going to be the fictitious resistance representing the core loss. Similarly, I can write V0 by Im is Xm, which is magnetizing reactance. So I have got basically from open circuit test what I conducted, I essentially determined XM, RC, and I have also determined what are the no load losses. So I am essentially getting three things from open circuit test: RC, XM, and P core. These are the three things. So three quantities are determined using open circuit test. A few things that we have to notice is in open circuit test, we are having the circuit diagram here again. We are applying rated voltage V1 in this case. This is the rated voltage V1 which we have applied. And rated voltage, it is always easier to find a source which is probably 400 volts rather than 4000 volts. So if I have a transformer which is 4000 by 400 volts transformer, I would like to conduct the test on 400 volt side rather than 4000 volt side. What I mean is, I would like to keep the 4000 volt side open circuited, and I would like to have actually the 400 volts as the side from where I am applying the voltage. So open circuit test as a rule is conducted by applying the voltage on LV side. So LV side, it is always easier to find such a source. That's the reason why we are going to generally conduct it from the LV side. So we apply rated voltage, but the current that is flowing is very, very small. It is only 5%. So I am going to get essentially the core losses, which are actually the rated core losses themselves. So from open circuit test, we are determining RC, XM, and P core. These are the three things that we are determining. Now try to look at short circuit test. As the name indicates, short circuit test is essentially going to short circuit one of the sides of the transformer. From the other side, source is going to be connected. This is what we do in the short circuit test. So let us try to take a look at the short circuit test basically. Let's say this is one of the sides of the transformer. This is the other side. Let me say that I am short circuiting this side of the transformer. I am still not mentioning whether it is low voltage side or high voltage side. Now I am going to have a wattmeter clearly. I am going to have an ammeter and I am connecting it together, and I am going to connect a voltmeter here. Fine. Now this is the wattmeter. Let me call whatever is the reading that is coming up as WSC, which indicates that it is short circuit test. This is ISC, this is VSC. Now I have to make sure that the current does not exceed rated current. So ISC should be equal to I rated. Whether I am looking at LV side or HV side is my choice right now, but ISC has to be I rated. If ISC equal to I rated, I square or losses or copper losses will be at rated value. So copper losses are at rated value. So obviously if I short circuit the secondary side of the transformer, think about the equivalent circuit. I'm going to have R equivalent, X equivalent, and I'm going to short circuit the secondary. And here is going to be my voltage, what I am applying. Forget about the parallel branch, because parallel branches generally are not going to take more than 5% of the current. So 95% of the current or more will flow through this R equivalent and X equivalent. So now I would say, if I had applied, if VSC had been equal to V rated, then I'm going to have ISC equal to VSC divided by R equivalent plus JX equivalent. And we know that R equivalent and Jx equivalent are going to be small for a transformer because the resistance of the copper is generally very small. And X equivalent value also is going to be small because I don't have much of leakage. So the current will be enormously high. It is going to be enormously high because normally I rated times R equivalent divided by rated voltage is going to be less than 2%. This we wrote yesterday itself, if you may recall. Similarly, I rated multiplied by X equivalent divided by V rated is also going to be less than about 4% or 5%. So these are very, very small values. So this current can be as high as 20 to 30 times I rated, which is dangerous definitely for the transformer. That's the reason why normally what we do in the short circuit test is to apply the voltage using a variac. So I'm going to use something called an auto transformer, which we will talk about very shortly. And then I'm going to apply the voltage. So auto transformer is exactly similar to a potential divider. Only thing is it is made up of inductance rather than resistance. So I am applying V rated here, whereas what I am applying here is VSC, which is a reduced voltage. So this reduced voltage we will apply in such a way that ISC becomes equal to I rated. I don't want to exceed I rated when I'm conducting the short circuit test. So what we do is like this, we keep the variac at 0 position, slowly increase it until ISC equal to I rated. At that point, we take the reading of WSC, ISC and VSC. Now that we have taken the reading, let us try to look at the calculations. So let's say the short circuit test data, it is going to be VSC, ISC and WSC. And the voltage normally, because we said R equivalent is only approximately 1 to 2% and X equivalent is approximately 3 to 4%, R equivalent square plus X equivalent square root will be Z equivalent. That will be less than generally 5% at any rate. If it is less than 5%, that means I rated multiplied by Z equivalent divided by V rated is going to be less than 5%. So if V rated is equal to 220 volts, VSC what I am applying will be approximately 11 volts or less. So it is going to be less than or equal to 11 volts. That is what it is going to be. So it is very, very small. So if I look at the flux under this short circuit condition, flux is going to be VE divided by 4.44 F number of turns. Voltage is only less than 5% of V rated. Rest of the things are all constants, 4.44 Fn. So flux is going to be less than 5% of rated value under short circuit condition. So I can say clearly that during this time P core, this depends upon flux. So if the flux is only 5%, I'm going to have P core to be negligibly small. So I can say WSC is almost equal to P copper. It is equal to copper loss. It is not going to be anything other than copper losses. So we go with the assumption that this is equal to I rated square R equivalent. This is what we are going to get. So I have got already I rated. So I can directly say R equivalent equal to WSC divided by ISC square. Right? So I have got R equivalent. I can say VSC divided by ISC is equal to Z equivalent. I have got Z equivalent and I have got R equivalent. So I can definitely get X equivalent. So I can say X equivalent equal to, Z equivalent square minus R equivalent square root. So I have got X equivalent, I have got Z equivalent, I have got R equivalent, I have got rated copper loss. So I can say from short circuit test, what I get is equivalent, we get X equivalent, we get Z equivalent. These are the things that we are going to get from short circuit test data. So now that we have got all the data, we can draw the overall equivalent circuit again. Just to come back to short circuit test, from which side that is conducted. Short circuit is normally conducted only from the high voltage side rather than low voltage side. What you are passing is rated current. Let us again try to look at a transformer of say 2200 kVA, 2200 volts divided by 220 volts. Just let me take a transformer like this. Under this condition, this side rated current is 1 ampere, whereas this side rated current is 10 ampere. It is always easier to pass a lower current rather than a higher current. And lower rated current will happen only on the high voltage side, not on the low voltage side. So I would like to conduct the short circuit test always from high voltage side. So let me probably underline that here, that short circuit test will always be conducted by applying the source on the high voltage side. Low voltage side will be short circuited. This is essentially for the convenience, because I want to have less current to be passed, and that will happen only if I am passing the current from the high voltage side. That's the reason. So I have essentially looked at getting the parameters from short circuit test. I have got R equivalent and X equivalent, and from open circuit test I have got RC and XM. From here I have got copper losses. From here I have got core losses, right? We will not be able to get R1, R2 dash or X1, X2 dash separately. Assuming both the windings are almost similar, I can say R equivalent by 2 will be equal to R1, which will also be equal to R1 dash. Similarly, I can say X equivalent by 2 will be equal to X1, which will be equal to X2 dash. This we go with an assumption, because we will not be able to segregate R1 and R2 separately. And voltage regulation plots with respect to output power or output current. This is what we are going to do next. So we want to look at how the efficiency and voltage regulation change. Yesterday itself we said that the maximum efficiency occurs when core losses are equal to copper losses at a particular load. So that load at which this core loss is equal to copper losses, that is based on the design. So let us say this is the percentage load. I'm going to say probably this is 20%, this is 40%, this is 60, this is 80, and this is 100. So if it is a power transformer, normally the maximum efficiency will be close to 100%. So from here it will slowly rise, and then maybe it will just become maximum at 100%. This will be the plot for a power transformer. Whereas if it is a distribution transformer, my maximum efficiency may occur near 60% or something. So it is going to rise like this, and it reaches close to 60% maximum value, and then it is going to decrease. it may not still decrease too much. It depends upon, again, what is the resistance of the winding. So this is going to be for a distribution transformer. My 100% might lie somewhere here. Obviously, it will not touch 100%. It will be slightly less than 100%. And these are all for unity power factor load. If the power factor is lower, then I'm going to have lower and lower values of efficiency. So this may be for 0.8 power factor, this may be for 0.7 power factor, and so on. Whereas this is for unity power factor load of the distribution transformer. I should show for other power factors, again, it may come down further and further. So this is how the efficiency plot versus load is going to be. Any questions on this? Because yesterday, what is the power factor of the wattmeter? What is the power factor of the wattmeter in both LV and HV respectively, and why? Can we conduct short circuit test at half full load and then calculate full load copper loss? Okay, there are two questions that have come up. One question says, can we conduct short circuit test at half full load and then calculate the full load copper losses? Yes, you can do that because we are assuming that basically the copper losses are proportional to I square. There is no non-linearity involved. So you can do it even at half full load, which is fine, as long as we assume that R equivalent and X equivalent remain as a constant. They are remaining as a constant because we are assuming that X equivalent corresponds to air gap and R equivalent corresponds to, unless it gets heated up, R equivalent will not increase. That's the reason. The other question what has come up is, what is the power factor of the wattmeters in both LV and HV respectively? See, in open circuit test and short circuit test, you can say what is the kind of power factor wattmeters that you are going to use. In open circuit test, normally we tend to use a LPF wattmeter. It has nothing to do with the low power factor of the circuit. The circuit will also have a very low power factor. Under open circuit condition, the power factor will be as low as 0.2 or 0.3 or even less generally. Short circuit condition power factor may be about 0.4 or something like that. Still, it is not a very good power factor. Open circuit test, we generally use a LPF wattmeter because LPF wattmeter ranges will be normally 0 to 60 watts or 0 to 75 watts. So we will have a good resolution. That is the only reason. Resolution is much better. We generally expect that open circuit losses or core losses will be rather very small because we normally design the magnetic circuit of a transformer to be very good. So hysteresis losses and eddy current losses will be minimized. There is hardly any air gap. So everything is going to confine itself to the core. So we would normally expect that the core losses are very, very small. The magnetizing current drawn is also small. So that is the reason why we have to put a low range wattmeter. So this has to be essentially a low range, whereas in short circuit test, the losses can be somewhat higher. PCU can be a little higher than P core. So that is the reason why we normally tend to use a UPF wattmeter in short circuit case. We normally use a UPF wattmeter in short circuit case. Otherwise, if you look at the power factor range, normally in open circuit condition, it is going to be about 0.2 to 0.3. Short circuit condition, it can be slightly higher. This is how it is. I hope I have answered your question. Can we conduct? No, about that. What are the limitations of open circuit and short circuit test? At least in transformers, I would not say the limitations are too much because we expect that the transformer is a well-designed one and open circuit test will give me rated iron loss and short circuit test will generally give me at least an extrapolation of rated copper loss. If it is an induction motor, yes, I can have difficulty because it's very difficult for me to segregate the frictional losses, because the machine is rotating. In a rotating machine, it is more difficult. So there is a limitation in the case of rotating machines, not really much in the transformer. That's what I would assume generally. There is one more question. May I know what is magnetostriction in transformer? Magnetostriction is, we told during hysteresis, the domains align and realign. Because the domains, magnetic domains align and realign, simultaneously the laminations can also kind of vibrate because of the aligning and realigning of the magnetic domains. These are essentially going to cause some noise, and that noise generally we call it as magnetostriction noise. Generally, there is one more question. Generally, OC test is conducted in LV side. The wattmeter gives iron losses. Suppose it is conducted on HV side. Is there any change in wattmeter reading? And also tell me how the separation of iron losses. See, the thing is whether you conduct it from HV side or LV side, it doesn't matter because the power is invariant. It will give you the core losses corresponding to the entire core of the transformer. It's not going to be any different whether you do it from LV side or HV side. But if you want to separate the losses, the only way you can do it is, if I say that my overall open circuit test reading is W0 and I0 is my no load current, W0 minus I0 square R equivalent will be the core losses. We normally neglect this because this is neglected because I0 is very small. So if you don't want to neglect it, this is one way of doing it. You can separate the copper losses, what are incurred in the equivalent resistance. You can subtract it from W0 to get the core losses. That is the only way you can talk about separating the losses in this particular case. How to separate? Okay, that's done. The next one is, what about isolation transformer? How we can perform OC and SC test? It's the same thing. Whether it is isolation transformer or a normal power transformer, distribution transformer, it doesn't matter. OC test is with one of them being open circuited. In isolation transformer, in all probability, it will have a turns ratio of 1:1. So you don't have to really worry about HV or LV side. One side can be short circuited and from the other side you will apply the source. That's it. So it doesn't really matter. There is one question, how to separate the primary and secondary parameters. The primary and secondary parameters, as I told you, cannot be really separated. That's the reason we normally assume that both of them are identical. So we say R1 equal to R2 dash equal to R equivalent by 2 divided by 2. Similarly, X1 equal to X2 dash equal to X equivalent divided by 2. This is what we do. So there is no other way that we can really separate primary and secondary parameters. Is there any discussion on polarity test? Maybe towards the end, if time permits, we will try to take a look at that. If not, we'll have to skip it. We will first of all maybe complete the regulation versus load graph, that also. So regulation versus power output. That graph we'll try to plot now. So we are essentially looking at, please recall what was voltage drop expression which we derived yesterday. It was I2 multiplied by R equivalent dash. If you want to let it, be calculated from the secondary side, cos phi L plus X equivalent dash sin phi L. This is what was our voltage drop expression. Please note that as the load increases, very clearly the voltage drop is going to increase. I2 is going to increase. And also, depending upon whether sin phi L has a particular value which is positive or negative, the voltage drop is going to change. So let me plot what is the terminal voltage on the secondary side. So secondary terminal voltage versus load, percentage load. So let me probably say this is 20%, this is 40%, this is 60%, this is 80, this is 100. Right? Nominal terminal voltage, let us say, is 220 volts. Ideally, I would have liked the transformer to maintain this as the voltage, irrespective of the load. But definitely there is inherent resistance drop and inductance drop. So if I look at unity power factor load, I am looking at cos phi L to be 1, sin phi L is 0. So only R equivalent is going to contribute towards the drop. And that is always positive. So I2, as I2 increases, I'm going to have more and more drop. So I should say probably I'm going to have something like this for unity power factor. If I am actually looking at lagging power factor load, X equivalent sin phi L is also going to contribute, definitely. So that will actually increase further. The drop will increase further. So this will be lagging power factor load. Maybe this is slightly lagging, not much lagging. If it is lagging more, it will drop more. So more lagging. Now, if I am talking about leading power factor load, I may have sometimes the voltage increasing. I may have, if it is slightly leading, it will almost be maintained constant, almost. So this is, I would say, slightly, whereas this is more. I hope this is clear. Okay. So this is going to be essentially, these are going to be the graphs of voltage regulation versus the various percentage loads as well as power factor. I hope this would answer the question. It is not exactly voltage regulation that I have plotted rather terminal voltage. So terminal voltage or voltage regulation, both are kind of synonymous because you will have an idea as to what is going to be the secondary terminal voltage. Is there one more question? No, we find all the parameters from OC and SC test. Then why do we do the Sumpner's test? Okay, Sumpner's test is essentially a back-to-back test where you are going to have two transformers that are connected together and the voltage difference between them. So if I have one transformer here and I have one more transformer here. So one transformer is going to be supplied from the source, right? This is going to be the source voltage, and this transformer's secondary is going to be connected to the primary of the other one. I can definitely create a voltage difference. Of course, I have to make sure that the polarity is correct. Polarity test is very important in this case. So if I am applying a voltage V1 here, I am expecting that there should be a voltage V2 here. Maybe polarity is like this during positive half cycle. Now, if I look at this as V2, I have to make sure that because this will also be connected to the source. Now, by adjusting whatever is the voltage difference between these two slightly, maybe I can put a variac so that I have the voltage difference between this V2 and this V2 dash maintained at whatever is the required value. So by adjusting the voltage difference between these two, I would be able to make sure that a particular current flows through this. That current is going to make sure that this transformer looks as though it is loaded. So we are going to load both the transformers by creating a fictitious situation as though there is a voltage difference between one transformer and the second transformer. So this is indirectly a load test. It's not exactly that we are loading the transformer. We are creating a situation as though we are loading the transformers, both of them. So both transformers have to be similar. So if both transformers are similar, whatever is the wattmeter reading that obtained here, that wattmeter reading will consist of losses of both transformers. So what I can do is, if I make actually these two voltages exactly equal, it will be as good as open circuiting condition. If I make these two voltages slightly different such that this amperage is same as the rated current, then it is as good as short circuit condition. So I would be able to conduct both short circuit and open circuit kind of condition. I can create such a situation. So this test is generally known as Sumner's test. And you are not wasting any power, not much of power, although you are creating a situation as though it is being loaded, because you are feeding back the power again through the other primary or secondary of the transformer. So you are not really drawing much of power other than just the losses in the two transformers, nothing more than that. There is one more question. Ma'am, can you brief about various tests performed on the transformer? We already talked about open circuit and short circuit tests. Sumner's test, I just made a passing mention. Okay. Polarity test, let me probably just quickly touch upon that. We still have a long way to go because we have to talk about all day efficiency. If not all day efficiency, at least I need to talk about definitely auto transformer. Okay. Polarity test. Let's say I have one transformer here, a second transformer here. I am showing the secondaries in red color. So this is one transformer secondary. This is the second transformer secondary. So let me call this as A, B, and let me call this as A1, B1. Let me call this as C, D, and let me call this as C1, D1. Okay. I want to first of all see whether I can connect them in parallel. I want to connect them in parallel for whatever reason. Maybe I have a load. Let's say this is a 1 kVA transformer. This is also a 1 kVA transformer. My load is a 2 kVA load. So obviously that load has to be connected with both of them together. So probably I have to just connect this like this. But just one transformer will not be sufficient. So I might have to connect this terminal also here and this terminal here. Are you getting my point? So I am essentially connecting AB and CD in parallel, A1, B1 and C1, D1 in parallel. Now, let's say this is a 220 by 220 volts transformer itself. Okay. So I'm going to have 220 volts only coming up across this, but each of the transformer will contribute 1 kVA. So I can connect a 2 kVA load. I can't connect the transformers arbitrarily unless I know that A1 and C1 are having the same polarity. Similarly, B1 and D1 are having the same polarity. So for this, what I will do is I will apply a voltage source here across AB, and I'm going to connect the same voltage source to CD. So this is AB, this is CD. So you realize that I'm connecting the same voltage source to AB and CD. Now I have the secondary side, which is actually A1, B1, and I have another secondary here, which is C1, D1. I'm connecting them in series. You can understand that B1 and C1 are connected together, so they are coming in series. If I measure the voltage here, what will be the voltage? If I have the polarity in such a way that this is plus, this is minus, this is plus, this is minus, then I'm going to have essentially both the voltages in series addition. So I will get 2V, or if I apply 220 volts, I'm going to get 440 volts here. So if I get 440 volts here, that means I have connected plus and minus together. So it is not good to connect like this for parallel operation. If I get 440 volts, I know that I have to connect A to C rather than B to C. I cannot connect B to C. I have to connect A to C. Only then the polarities are matching. So essentially, this is what is polarity test. When I connect the primaries of the two transformers to a common source, and I connect the secondaries in series and find out the value of voltage what I am getting. If it is twice the voltage, that means the polarities are not correct for parallel operation. If I am getting zero voltage, That means the polarities are correct for this particular parallel operation. Is that clear? So I hope so that the polarity test is somewhat clear now. Shall we just go over to now auto transformer? Let's probably try to take a quick look at what is a auto transformer. Auto transformer is a single winding transformer which is similar to a potential divider. But it is not resistive, it is rather inductive. So it is not resistive, but it is rather inductive. So no dissipation occurs in this. Okay. So essentially, it is like a single winding transformer, I told you. So I have to look at it as though there are so many turns, and I'm going to tap the voltage across only a few turns. So let us say I apply some 400 volts here. Okay, I will be, so this is AC, obviously. I am going to get, if I take only 1/4 of the turns, I will get 100 volts here. Let's say from 400 volts, I want to supply a 100 volts load. I will be able to connect it like this. So this load wants 100 volts. So I will be able to take it from a 400 volt source by using a variac. So I can essentially look at a variac as a source which will provide me with lower values of voltage. I can also have sometimes higher values of voltage. For example, if I have a variac like this, I am applying 400 volts only to a fewer turns than the total number of turns. So what I get here may be 500 volts because I have more number of turns. So I would be able to step up or step down using essentially an auto transformer. It depends upon how I connect. There are definitely some advantages and some disadvantages. Let us first of all try to look at what are all the disadvantages. Between primary and secondary, so this is my primary side and this is my secondary side. So there is no isolation between primary and secondary. This is one of the major problems of auto transformer. But if I am looking at, I'm supplying maybe 220 volts, but what I want is to get the 220 volts all the time, even if there is fluctuation here. So many stabilizers use auto transformer for stabilizing the output voltage. So let us say it is fluctuating to 210 volts. Here, if I increase the output turns or I move this movable point to a little higher value, then obviously I will get 220 volts as the output. Similarly, let's say due to some fluctuation, this is going to 240 volts instead of 220 volts. I still want to get only 220 volts. Then I have to decrease the output turns. Then it will work perfectly fine. I will still get 220 volts at the output. So in a variac, invariably in a variac or an auto transformer, so auto transformer and variac are synonymous. So in a variac, I'm going to essentially have a set of turns which will be common to primary and secondary. Depending upon at what point I'm tapping, I'm going to get an appropriate voltage at the load terminals. This is what is the basic working of an auto transformer. Let us quickly try to take a look at how a two-winding transformer can be connected as an auto transformer. Okay. Let's say I have a two-winding transformer like this. Okay. Let me say maybe this is A, this is B, and this is C, this is D. Let me say that maybe 200 volts I am applying here and 100 volts I will normally get here. That is the way the transformer is working. Let me call this as a 2 kVA transformer. So which means I'm going to have 10 amperes of current here and 20 amperes of current here. This is how it is going to be. I want to now connect it as an auto transformer so that a 300 volt load is to be supplied by a 200/100 volts transformer. Okay. Now let me just draw first of all that this is my 200 volt supply, primary winding. I am going to draw the secondary winding in such a way that they are going to come in series addition. So I am going to say that if this is plus and this is minus, this is plus and this is minus. Okay. So I have to essentially connect AB and CD in series addition. So that means I have plus here, minus here. I should have plus here and minus here. Only then it will be series addition. So I have to have C here and D here. Is that clear? Now I am going to connect the 200 volts supply here. Now here is my load which will be connected across this. So this is a 300 volts load. Okay. Now let me try to look at the currents. I cannot supply more than 10 ampere here. So let me say this is 10 ampere. Maybe the return current will be 10 ampere because I don't want AB to carry more than 10 ampere. That's what I'm talking about. Now CD can carry at the most 20 amperes. So let us say I am essentially looking at 20 amperes being carried. Rather than drawing 10 ampere here, let me show as though 10 ampere is flowing here. Let me probably finish the whole thing first of all. This is 20 ampere. So 20 ampere is flowing through this. 20 ampere is going to return like this. This is how it is going to be. Please note that CD can carry at the most 20 ampere. AB can carry at the most 10 ampere. This is the constraint that I have. So if CD can carry at the most 20 ampere, 300 multiplied by 20 will be the overall kVA rating of the load. So I'm going to have 6 kVA being supplied by this variac. 6 kVA is being supplied by this variac because it is 300 volts and 20 ampere. Now if 20 amperes are flowing like this and I don't want basically AB to carry more than 10 ampere, I have to think how I will distribute the current. This is 6 kVA. So obviously the input also has to be 6 kVA. So output is 6 kVA. So input is also equal to 6 kVA. Which means the input current I1, I may call this as I1. I1 will be 6000 divided by 200, which is 30 ampere. So it has to be 30 ampere. So what I wrote here is not correct. This has to be 30 amperes. This also has to be 30 amperes. If this is 30 amperes and this is 10 ampere, that means I have to have probably 10 ampere coming from here. So you can see that AB carries 10 ampere, but from up to down direction. But CD carries 20 ampere from down to up direction. So always you fix the currents of the windings at their maximum value. Then calculate the load kVA. Load kVA will be equated to the input kVA, from which you can determine what are the input currents. From the input currents and the winding currents, you can always determine the directions. Not a problem, right? So we can summarize that auto transformer has the disadvantage of not really having isolation, between the primary and secondary side. But the plus point is, from a lower voltage source, I will be able to supply a higher voltage to the load, or vice versa, as long as I don't exceed the current limits. And compared to the original transformer's kVA of 2 kVA, now the kVA has increased to 6 kVA. So always I'm going to have a higher value of kVA possible with the help of an auto transformer. And if I look at the losses will be same as the 2 kVA operation under isolated condition, because the same currents are being carried, the same amount of flux is being established. The core losses and copper losses are going to remain the same. At 2 kVA, if I am having X as the total losses, at 6 kVA also X is going to be the total losses. So the efficiency will be better. So efficiency is better, kVA rating increases, but I have to make sure that, please note, if I call this as the ground point, from ground, this is 200 volts, this is 300 volts. So the insulation of CD portion has to be strengthened. So CD insulation has to be strengthened. Otherwise, I am not going to be able to make sure that the insulations do not puncture. By chance, if I just connect it without a second thought, CD's insulation will be punctured because it was designed only for 100 volts, but it is actually having 300 volts with respect to ground, because it is actually conductively coupled, not just magnetically coupled. It is also conductively coupled. I am connecting them together. So there is no isolation. So much so for auto transformer. First of all, let me address the questions that are being asked. Can we check the polarity by using DC source in a transformer? No, not at all. Because if the DC source is of a very, very low voltage value, then maybe you can say fine, but we generally use AC source only in a transformer because of electromagnetic induction principle, which can work only with the help of AC source. If I connect a DC source to a transformer, so if I have a transformer and by mistake I have connected a DC source, what do you think will happen? Can I have some answer from somebody? What do you think will happen if I connect a DC source? If I connect a DC source, there is no d phi by dt. d phi by dt is 0. No change in flux. So which means no induced EMF. So only thing which limits the current will be if I apply VDC divided by the resistance. That's all. That is going to be the current. So the resistance is normally very, very small. So the current is going to be enormously high, very, very high. Current is very high. So the transformer will burn because it is as good as short circuiting the positive and negative. So it is definitely not a good thing to connect AC. So transformers work only on AC, not on DC. So the transformers can work only on AC, not on DC. So I would definitely not recommend you to do the test with DC. There was one more question. Why the single winding transformer is known as auto transformer? It is just a nomenclature. That's all. Auto means self. So they are essentially trying to look at two windings together connected basically. So it is a single winding transformer which is actually auto. It just works by its own voltages induction. That's all. So that is why it is known as auto transformer. It is just a nomenclature. The next question is, can we apply concept of polarity test of single phase transformer in the same way applied for the three phase transformer? Very much. If I have three single phase transformers, right, and I want to connect them in star or delta, this is how I have to do it. I have to first of all connect all of them to a common source. So if I connect all of them to a common source, I would be able to see if I have A, B, let me say A1, B1, this is A2, B2. I have to check the polarities of AB, A1, B1 and A2, B2 with respect to each other. So I have to first check if I am getting these two connected in series, whether I am getting 2 times V or 0 volts. Similarly, I have to connect AB, A1, B1 connected in series. Check the voltage. Similarly, I have to connect AB and A2, B2. Check the voltage. Then I should be able to now say that which is the beginning and which is the end. So if I say that case I am getting 2V, that means I have to connect B1 to B, not really A1 to B. That's what it means. So I will get which is the beginning of a phase winding, and which is the end. So if I have these clearly marked out, then I can connect them in star or delta. In star, I'm going to connect all the beginnings together. All the ends will be left out. In delta, I'm going to connect beginning to end, and so on. So I can definitely connect them in star or delta by using this. How can we use the auto transformer as a voltage booster in transmission line? It is essentially by using some tapping. For example, if I am going to have an auto transformer connected like this, if I connect here the voltage from my generator, right? I can have various tappings. I can have the tapping here, I can have a tapping here, I can have a tapping here, and so on. So let us say this is tapping 1, this is tapping 2, this is tapping 3. So tapping 1 will be used if voltage from the generator is higher than expected, or there is light load. Light load on the other side, light load on the distribution side, on the distribution or transmission side. Whereas T2 will be used when there is nominal load and nominal voltage from the generator. T3 will be load at high loads, or when the generator voltage is smaller. So I can use a variac by having several taps, and then I can connect it anywhere. That's not a problem. So this is going to be the output point. We know that transformer is an inductor, then it has not to be allow sudden change in current. Then we can change the load continuously from consumer side. See, please understand that although it is an inductor, you are essentially trying to change the load, means the current is essentially going to be suddenly increased or decreased. The voltage is very much available. The load current is the one which is actually suddenly changing, which will actually reflect on the winding also. But it will have its own time constant. Definitely there will be time constant. You can't help it. There will be a time constant. That time constant is going to actually, cause what is known as inrush current. This, let us probably discuss inrush at this point. Inrush current in a transformer is essentially, let's say I have a transformer like this. When I connect it to a voltage source, let's say I connect it with the help of a switch. When I close the switch, when I am closing the switch, so at the instant of closing the switch, you are actually making the current change from a minimum value to whatever is the rated value, or at least no load value. So current has to change abruptly. right? But it is going to take a little while, first of all, because of the inductive circuit nature. And second thing is, I have to first of all see that the current flows and sets up the flux. There is always a time lag between the current flowing and setting up of the flux. That is what we call as hysteresis. So flux lags behind the current. So I am going to have, there is a little bit of delay in d phi by dt happening. So d phi by dt happens after a small time delay. So because of which there is no induced EMF. This is the way the induced EMF also is set up by Lenz's law. But this E will take some time for it to be set up. So I'm going to have a huge current. Actually, what we look at the transformer as the current will be, if I say this is V1, V1 minus E divided by the impedance of the primary winding. This is what is the current that is flowing through the transformer, if I may call this as I1. This I1 can be very large for a very, very short while because it takes some time for E to be set up. So until E sets up, I can have a sudden surge of current flowing into the transformer winding. This current is known as inrush current. So I1 initially can be high, and we call that as inrush current. I1 can be initially very high. So this is the inrush current of the transformer. So inrush current happens within a matter of, it depends upon the time constant of your transformer circuit. So initially whatever is the current drawn by the primary winding, that is what is known as the inrush current. I hope that answers the question. Winding will burn because of excess current. Acha, what happens if the DC is connected? Okay, that's a good answer. That's fine. Anything else is pending? No. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I think we have not covered all day efficiency. We'll worry about it after working out at least a few problems. So let me take up some problems, what I have got here, even in the tutorial sheet that will be distributed to you. Let me try to look at one of the problems. Okay, let me take the problem corresponding to open circuit and short circuit test. This is problem number 7 in your tutorial sheet. I am working out that problem directly.
Iron wire coil loop in place of stamping of transformer. Yes, then what will be the effect?
Can we use iron coil instead of copper coil?
No, ma'am. Instead of core stamping.
Instead of stampings, if you just use iron core, solid core, is that so?
No, ma'am. Coil, iron wire coil instead of core stamping.
So iron wire coil means you want to have them thin and then you want to just have many wires put together and then around that you want to wind the copper winding. Is that so?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, see the thing is that we want to have a proper path for the flux. If you don't have a proper path for the flux, it is going to be a problem. So generally what we try to do is to have a stamping which is actually a plane, and along this plane I am going to have actually the flux lines flowing seamlessly. Are you getting my point? So I have to have the flux lines flowing seamlessly through the plane of the core. So this is one plane. Behind that I will put one more stamping which will again have some lines along the same plane. So I am looking at two things simultaneously when I am talking about stamping. One is it has to give me a path for the flux lines to flow seamlessly. The second thing is it should not allow the current to flow seamlessly. So if we have actually wires put together, in between air gap will come. Because air gap comes, it will not be able to allow the flux lines to flow seamlessly. Yeah. I don't know whether I have answered your question. Is that all right? Okay. So let us try to work out one problem first of all on short circuit and open circuit data. This is 7th problem that is given in your tutorial sheet. I don't know whether the tutorial sheet has been distributed. If not, anyway, let me read out the problem. Calculate R naught, which is actually RC according to what we have discussed. X naught, which is again XM as per what we have discussed. RT, which is actually R equivalent as per what we have discussed. And XT, which is X equivalent as per what we have discussed. In the equivalent circuit of a single phase 4 kVA 200 by 400 volts 50 hertz transformer with the following test results. Okay, it says open circuit test 200 volts. Please note it is conducted on the low voltage side. 200 volts, 0.7 ampere, 70 watts. Short circuit test is 15 volts, 10 ampere and 80 watts conducted on the high voltage side. Okay. So we'll have to calculate the equivalent circuit parameters. Can I have some input from some of you guys? Let us try to work out the solution. How will you get the power factor under open circuit condition? That will be W naught divided by V naught I naught, right? So that will be 70 divided by 200 multiplied by 0.7, right? So how much is it coming to? 70 by 140, I think so. So that will be 0.5. So cos phi naught comes out to be 0.5. Sin phi naught, in that case, hopefully should be cos inverse of 0.5 is 60 degrees. So sin phi naught will be 0.866. Okay. So I can say IC, which is the core loss component of current, that will be I naught cos phi naught. So I can say RC will be V naught divided by I naught cos phi naught. I think that is coming out to be V naught is 200. I naught cos phi naught is, I naught is 0.7. So this is 0.35. So 200 by 0.35 is going to be RC. Okay. So I think RC comes out to be 571 ohms. Just check it up. I could have made a mistake. So now that I have RC, I should be able to calculate XM. For calculating XM, I should say IM equal to V naught divided by I naught. This is XM, sorry. XM equal to V naught divided by I naught sin phi naught. Right? Yeah, 571. That's right. That's right. So V naught divided by IM, which is equal to, can you please tell me what this value is? 200 divided by 0.6062 ampere. That is what I am getting as. So it's approximately 200 by 0.6 is about 300, 330 or something like that. Yeah, good. 329. Somebody has written the value as 329.9 ohms. This is what we are getting as. We have got the data for parallel parameters in the equivalent circuit. Now series parameters. So we need R equivalent and X equivalent. These are the two things that we need to calculate. For that, we have to look at short circuit data. So let me look at the short circuit data. Short circuit data says 15 volts, 10 ampere, 80 watts. Please note this is from high voltage side. So ultimately we might have to transfer all the impedances to the low voltage side if we want to show the equivalent circuit from LV side. So Z equivalent dash will be 15 divided by 10, that is equal to 1.5 ohm, right? And I can say 80 equal to 15 multiplied by 10 multiplied by cos phi SC. So I can calculate what is cos phi SC. Once I calculate that, Z equivalent dash cos phi SC will give me R equivalent dash. I can also do it by I square R equivalent equal to 80 watts. I can do it this way too. There is nothing wrong. Either way is fine. Both should give you the same answer. And I can say Z equivalent dash multiplied by sin phi SC equal to X equivalent dash. I think R equivalent dash and X equivalent dash are coming out to be 1.27 ohms for this. This is what I'm getting. Can you guys tell me what is R equivalent? R equivalent is coming out to be 0.8. That's what I have written. Yeah, it is 80 watts divided by 100. So it is 0.8. So 0.8 ohms. So you have got R equivalent and X equivalent, right? But this is all in the high voltage side. So in LV side, right, R equivalent will be 0.8 divided by 2 square because the turns ratio is 2. So this will be 0.2 ohms. X equivalent will be 1.27 divided by 2 square. So you can calculate this also. 1.27 divided, so 0.3 something it will come out to be, right? So 0.3, 1 and 10 by 4. So that is 312 ohm, something like this. Am I right? 317, is it? Okay, maybe I have made some calculation mistake. So this is pretty simple, not a problem. Shall we do for the same transformer? I don't want to take up probably, you know, from your tutorial sheet. For the same transformer, let us try to calculate. So let us say 7A, let me call this a 7A problem. For the same transformer, calculate the efficiency and voltage regulation for 75% load at 0.8 power factor, lag and lead. I am arbitrarily giving this question, so you guys have to help me to calculate. I don't have the calculator here. Okay, let's try to do this. Okay, now we have got already R equivalent and X equivalent. I think we got that as 0.2 and 0.317 or something. 0.2 and 0.317 ohm or something like that. This is what we have got. It doesn't matter whether it is 312 or 317. I'm essentially trying to demonstrate a concept. So it doesn't matter if the calculations are somewhat, you know, here and there. So let us see first of all, 75% load indicates that the current on the primary side for this transformer. It is a 200 by 400 volts transformer, 4 kVA. So 200 by 400 volts transformer, 4 kVA means 200 multiplied by 20 amperes. So 20 ampere. That's what we have to do, right? Fine. So if we say it is 20 ampere on the LV side, okay, so at 75% load, 20 multiplied by 0.75. So that is 15 ampere is the current on the LV side. Okay, this is rated current. Whereas this is essentially LV side current. Now with this, we should be able to calculate whatever is our value of efficiency. So first of all, let us calculate efficiency. At 75% load, PCU will be equal to 0.75 whole square multiplied by 80 watts. So that is 0.5625 multiplied by 80 will be the same. Core loss will not change. So core loss is 70 watts. This is a constant. There is no difference. Now I have to say what is the output. Output is 0.75 times 4 kVA multiplied by 0.8 power factor. Whether it is lag or lead, it doesn't matter. So this is going to be my output watts. Right? Can any of you calculate and tell me how much is the output? 0.75 multiplied by 0.8 multiplied by 4000. 2400. So this you are telling that this is 45 watts. Okay. So PCU is 45 watts. That's what I understand. Okay. So I can say output equal to 2400 watts. Input will be equal to 2400 plus 45 plus 70 watts. So efficiency equal to output by input. Now let us look at whether it is lagging or leading. Please note, I will not have any change in efficiency. For both lagging and leading power factor, efficiency will remain the same at 75% load, 0.8 power factor. It's not going to change. Okay. Now I have to look at voltage regulation. So let us try to take a look at voltage regulation. So in the voltage regulation, we have again been asked 75% load, 0.8 power factor, lag and lead, both. We already calculated the current to be 15 ampere, right? And cos phi is 0.8. So sin phi of the load will be 0.6, right? So let us try to calculate at 0.8 power factor lag. Let us try to calculate. So that is going to be 15 multiplied by R equivalent came out to be plus or minus X equivalent sin phi L. That's what I am writing as the voltage drop. So So let us say this is the drop in the voltage. So I can write this as 15 multiplied by 0.2 multiplied by 0.8 plus 0.6 multiplied by 0.317. That's what I remember. Right? So can you guys tell me how much is the value of, so efficiency somebody has calculated as 95.42%. Good. So let us try to calculate the voltage drop for lagging load. So can you please tell me how much is the voltage drop? 0.82 multiplied by point. So this is 15 multiplied by 0.16 plus 4.2% regulation. Is it 4.2 volts? Okay, whatever. So 4.2 or 5.25, I don't know which one. Anyway, so you can calculate how much is the voltage drop. Once you calculate the voltage drop, I should say percentage regulation is equal to voltage drop divided by 200 multiplied by.
Morning, ma'am. What is the difference between welding transformer and auto transformer?
What is it? What is it? Come again. Yes, please.
What is the difference between welding transformer and auto transformer?
Okay, okay. Let me probably just take up that question. So, is there any question on this problem? So, shall we just go ahead further to answer that question? I hope so. We'll try to do that. Just a second. Let me just take this up. Yeah, please be seated. No problem. Please be seated. Okay. Welding transformer.
What is the difference between?
Yeah, auto transformer and welding transformer. That's what you asked. I know. So I'm just trying to, right? That's what you asked, right? Is that so? Okay. So welding transformer will expect short circuit. Quite often, short circuit will occur often at the output. So I am going to see that short circuit occurs in a welding transformer quite often, because of which its impedance has to be a little larger. Otherwise, it will burn in all probability, because if the impedance is larger, that is what I mean is R equivalent plus JX equivalent has to be larger. If it is not larger, then I'm going to have a very large short circuit current, which is detrimental to the transformer. Whereas in an auto transformer is, a normal transformer, two-winding transformer itself can be used as an auto transformer. But generally the impedance will not be large, will be small. It will not be much at all. Generally in welding transformers, we will have some kind of current limiting feature. Invariably, we have to add some kind of current limiting feature, because invariably the electrode might stick to the workpiece, which is like a short circuit condition. So at that point, current limiting has to be incorporated. Otherwise, the transformer is going to draw very heavy current and it can be detrimental to the transformer. Right? Got it? So any further queries on this? So let us continue with the same problem what we were doing, because I was thinking that we have still not finished it, because we had looked at only regulation for the lagging power factor load. We'll complete the regulation for leading power factor load. So regulation for 0.8 lead. Let's probably finish this, then I'll take up that question if you don't mind. So regulation at 0.8 lead is going to be 15 multiplied by 0.16 minus 0.6 into 0.317. Right? That's all is the difference, because we said plus or minus. If you may recall, we said plus or minus here. Plus is for lag and minus is for lead. So you can calculate what is the value of the voltage drop. So once you calculate this, the percentage regulation will be voltage drop divided by 200 multiplied by 100. So we have calculated the regulation for both the cases. Let me take up the next question. Somebody has a question and then we will go further.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning.
My question is related to losses of transformer. As we know
Uh-huh.
that when frequency, with increase in frequency, core loss increases. So
Yeah.
why we are using 60 hertz frequency?
Why are we using 50 hertz or 60 hertz frequency normally? Right? Okay. See, the thing is that if we go for higher frequencies, definitely it is not good for us because transformer core losses increase. It is also true that in transmission lines, again we have reactances. So reactance voltage drop will also increase if we go for higher frequencies. Whereas if we use lower frequency, why not lower frequency? That is what is our question. So if we want to have lower frequency, especially with incandescent lamps, if we look at the voltage and current, I'm going to have, actually it is resistive in nature. So if I have my voltage like this, the current will also have almost unity power factor waveform. So it will have something like this. Now if I look at the power, so this is V and I, both I have drawn. Now if I look at the power is going to be essentially oscillating at twice the frequency because I'm going to have both voltage and current to be positive. So I'm going to have the power going like this. This is how the power will be. So the power oscillation is like this. So light intensity is proportional to power. So at this point, the light will grow very bright, whereas at this point, the light will glow in a very, very dim fashion. Hardly any light will be there. So if I have a low frequency, the fluctuation in lights will be visible to my eyes. Fluctuations in light will be visible, which is definitely not good for, anybody who is trying to read. So if I have a frequency which is 50 hertz, because of the persistence of vision of my eye, persistence of vision for human eye is about 1/8 of a second. So I have to have it in such a way that maybe every 1/16th, 1/25th of a second, I will be able to not detect the fluctuation if the fluctuation is happening at a greater speed than 1/8 of a second. So 8 hertz would have done the job, no doubt. But what we are trying to do is to put a factor of safety, and we have put a factor of safety of almost 5 or 6. That's the reason why we have adopted 50 hertz. Because at 50 hertz, we will not be seeing the fluctuation which is actually happening. So in incandescent lamp, actually the fluctuation is happening which we are not able to detect because of the persistence of vision. So you go for higher frequency, not a very, very low frequency, right? Much higher frequency will increase the drop. So we didn't want to go for much higher frequencies. Right? Got it? Any other question? That's it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, well. So let us try to now go for the maximum efficiency condition in the previous problem itself. I think we said 70 watts were 7B. Let me call the same problem as 7B. 70 watts was open circuit data. I think 80 watts was short circuit data. That's what I remember. Let me just check once again. I think so. Yeah, 70 watts was open circuit data and 80 watts was the short circuit data. So at what load maximum efficiency occurs? Calculate the maximum efficiency value at unity power factor load. Fine. Okay, so how would you go about doing this? I have got PCU at rated load, that is 80 watts. PC at rated condition is 70 watts. Now I can say PCU at any other fraction x of the load, that is x square times PCU. So I can say x square times PCU equal to 70 watts for maximum efficiency. Right? So I can say x equal to root of 7 by 8. So you can calculate what is x, and that is the load at which the efficiency is going to be maximum. Now the maximum efficiency at this particular load equal to, so what is root of 7 by 8? Can any one of you please tell me? 0.935. Great. So this is 0.935. So maximum efficiency at this particular load at unity power factor is 0.935 multiplied by 4000 divided by 0.935 multiplied by 4000 plus losses. Please note, at this condition constant loss equal to copper loss. So I can simply write 2 into 70. That will do the job. Because 70 watts is the copper loss as well as constant loss. So I don't have to really calculate anything further. 2 multiplied by 70. So I can calculate what is the efficiency under this condition. Right? Are you getting my point? Because 70 corresponds to copper loss. 70 also corresponds to core loss. So I have taken 2 multiplied by 70 as the overall losses that the transformer is incurring. How much is this value? 96.39%. That's what has been calculated. Okay? That is definitely greater than what you got at full load condition. Please notice that at full load condition we got 95 point something. Now this is 96.39. So obviously this is a higher efficiency than that. Fine. So definitely maximum efficiency has to be greater than the other one. Not a problem. Shall we work out one problem on auto transformer? Let me just try to look at that. Yeah. There is one problem on auto transformer which I have given in your tutorial sheet. That is problem number 10. A 500 by 250 volts 5 kVA 2-winding transformer is to be used to from a source of 750 volts to supply a 500 volts load at 50 hertz. Okay. When tested as a 2-winding transformer at rated load, when tested as a 2-winding transformer at rated load, its efficiency is 96% at 0.8 power factor load. Okay. Show the connection diagram. For the auto transformer. And B, determine its kVA rating. Third, find its efficiency at full load, 0.8 power factor lagging as an auto transformer. Okay, so this is the problem. Let's try to write the solution. Okay, so I have the 2-winding transformer like this. So this is 500 volts, whereas this is 250 volts. This is what is the 2-winding transformer configuration. But if I want, so obviously it is 5 kVA means this will be 10 ampere and this will be 20 amperes. Right? This is going to be the normal configuration. If I want an auto transformer configuration, I have 750 volt source. So this is 250 volts winding. This is 500 volts winding. Both of them will be connected in series addition. And I would be applying 750 volts on this side. Okay. And what I am using is 500 volts output. Okay. So I have to look at what is the maximum kVA rating that I can have. Fine. So if I am talking about input is 750 volts and 250 volt winding can at most carry 20 amperes from what has been given. So this can carry at most 20 amperes. So the 20 amperes flows like this. Now 750 multiplied by 20 is 15 kVA. That is the maximum rating of the auto transformer. That's what it indicates. So obviously this has to be 30 ampere. Only then I will have 15 kVA on this side also. Fine. I hope you get this point. This is 30 ampere. So this should also be 30 ampere. This is 20 ampere. So this should also be 20 ampere. So 10 ampere should be flowing like this. I have indicated the arrows clearly. 10 ampere is flowing in this direction. Okay. Whereas 20 ampere is flowing in downward direction. Okay. Now that these are put together, now let us try to calculate. So I think connection diagram is done. This is done. Now determine the kVA rating, that is also done. 15 kVA we have determined. Now find its efficiency at full load. So quickly we will do this, and with that we will conclude our class. Okay. So we will try to see, first of all, it says at rated load 0.8 power factor, 96% efficiency. Okay. So 5000 multiplied by 0.8 will be the output at rated load 0.8 power factor. So input will be output divided by efficiency. So 5000 into 0.8 divided by 0.96. Okay. So this is essentially 4000 divided by 0.96 watts. So I can say losses will be equal to input minus output. Can you please calculate this and tell me? Okay, so this is 4166.66 watts, which means 166.66 watts will be the losses when primary and secondary are carrying rated current. So as an auto transformer, the losses will remain the same. It should not change for the same current. The losses are the same. Okay. Now I can say output at 15 kVA 0.8 power factor is 15 into 10 power 3 multiplied by 0.8. So that is 12,000 watts. Okay. So I can say efficiency as an auto transformer is equal to 12,000 divided by 12,000 plus 166.66 losses. That is the losses. So this will be the efficiency. I think efficiency comes out to be, if I am right, 98.63. Please check it up. Yeah, 98.63. Yeah. So please note that as a two-winding transformer, it was having only 96% efficiency at full load, whereas in the other case, the efficiency has gone up by 2.63%. So I hope so that at least some concepts have been driven to some extent, and I hope it is clear. At least what we have covered so far is the transformer, basic operation, construction, and we have looked at the magnetizing current, core losses, hysteresis and eddy current losses we discussed in detail. Then we looked at efficiency, the methods of reducing leakage. We looked at R equivalent and X equivalent, how to transfer them onto one side. We looked at efficiency, voltage regulation, condition for maximum efficiency. We also touched upon inrush current. We also looked at auto transformer, polarity test, and then we worked out a few problems. That's all we could do within this time. All day efficiency I had not covered, although I touched upon what is a distribution transformer and power transformer. But I am very sure all day efficiency you can pick it up if it is necessary. So thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the class. I too enjoyed taking this class. Thank you.